Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with this. I realize it's a topic that is a little difficult, sometimes daunting to many of us. Most coaches I know do not come from a business background, from an MBA background or controlling background. And let's face it, if we can't explain how we are worth the money that we're paid for what we do, we aren't worth it. That's a realization I had at a client a few years ago when I was asked to create this kind of information for an engagement. And I was like, oh, it's a complex world, we can't predict, you understand this, etc., etc., etc. And I had all of this anxiety stuff going on in my head. And then I sat down and said, okay, there are people in this organization paying me big money for this. And these people know Excel, they know KPIs, they know numbers, they know revenue. They are responsible for the organization making the money that they use to pay me with. And if I can't explain to these people how my work is valuable, I'm not worth it. So this is going to be the bit that is most about business measurement. If you're not familiar with that, dive in. I'm not fluent in this either, and that's okay. We need to understand enough of it to have good conversations with the people who are fluent with it and help them understand what change they're looking for. They also need an ROI calculation of why they're investing in us. So this is helping both of us, all of us in fact. It's helping the change, it's making it more sustainable, it's probably making it more effective because we're focusing on things that matter. And yes, it's hard. It's also a key thing where you can differentiate yourself from other coaches. So let's go for it. The topic of this is size of success. And we're talking money. Yes, size of success. How big is the overall value that was achieved / saved during your engagement? We're deliberately not focusing here on things that the organization might save or might earn later because of your engagement, because of what they've learned. This is long-term effects. They may or might be very valuable. If this is what you're paid for, invited for, let them pay next year when they see the effects. But you probably want some payment now, and you probably want to make a difference now. You don't want to make a change in the organization now that's only going to make a difference next year. I have not been in an environment where that was ever useful. So make it explicit that you're leaving them with an additional benefit of your work that they get to cash in later. The biggest value in that for you is that they are likely to recommend your services and they are likely to ask you back if they want more. So don't take that as my advice, and it's all of this core in this video is taken from a book called Executive Coaching with Backbone and Heart. Highly recommended, and it leads you to good questions, to good conversations. And I'm summarizing the gist here. So how big is the overall value that was achieved? There are multiple ways to measure the value of an organization, the value that an organization contributes to a bigger part of another organization. My assumption is that most of us, most of the time, do not work with a whole business, but work with a department, a unit, a product group, a team. And there is a way to calculate the net contribution of the part of the organization you worked with. And the people who are responsible for running that organization will know how they calculate their net contribution to the organization's success. They will have some way of measuring this. If you need inspiration, look at the measures connected to the personal targets of the leaders you work with. That's a clue in looking at what do they get paid for achieving. You probably want to help them achieve that in a better, more effective way. The most important thing here is the client decides which measures to take for the success. It's not your decision. You can advise, you can help them understand it, you can help them link it to the behavior change that they want, and that you may be inspiring, encouraging, helping them explore and do. But they decide which measures to take. They know how to calculate their net contribution, and they need to decide and be responsible for this. One interesting advice I learned from the book is to make it realistic so that the organization you work with doesn't become overly ambitious or overly, yeah, we are having this new great agile or whatever it is thing here and now we're not so successful. Compare it to other parts of the organization and or compare it to previous results of the same organization. So that you see how have things actually changed, how are things actually moving forward, and how are things comparing to other parts. So the example in the book was a sales organization that was operating in a specific market, and obviously the overall change in sales year over year is affecting everywhere. So you need to make sure that you look at how did we perform last year compared to the others, how are we performing this year compared to the others, and only the actual difference between those will be the net contribution that is affected by your change. And that's it. Find a realistic way of measuring, evaluating, gauging the size of the success of the change. It's probably not your expertise. It doesn't need to be. What you need to be is courageous enough, open enough, curious enough, and maybe providing the holistic picture of how things fit together so that they make sense of it in a good way, in a way that is coherent with their expectations and with your goals as a coach, coherent with their goals in the organization, what they wanted to achieve, and also coherent with how the whole organization, the bigger organization, understands progress and success. If you're working with the whole business, there's still a system around it. There are shareholders with expectations. There are ways of where they report their success and their progress, and all of these contextual things need to make sense. So your primary job here is get them to do it, understand enough of it so that you can make sense of it for the purpose of what we're doing here, gauging our impact that we make as coaches, and make sure it's all coherent. This is where you can provide additional value. Thank you.